She thought the courtroom belonged to her. That's the funny part, the kind of funny that isn't funny until later when you're looking back and realizing how close everything came to going very wrong. That morning, sitting in courtroom 2C in Franklin City, I could feel it in my chest before anyone even spoke, that pressure, that quiet weight, like the room had already made up its mind about who mattered and who didn't. You know what I mean? The benches were cold, the lights were buzzing, the air smelled like old files and burnt coffee, and right in front of me sat Malik Carter, 21 years old, wrists cuffed, ankles chained, trying to sit still while his whole body betrayed him. His mom was a few rows back, gripping a tissue so hard her knuckles were white, and the state was ready to erase her son's future with one story told by one detective, a woman named Kendra Voss. Voss walked in like she owned the place, crisp uniform, shiny badge, slow gum, chew eyes, scanning the room like she was deciding what she wanted for lunch, not like she was about to talk about sending a kid to prison. She took the stand, crossed her legs, leaned back, and started talking about Malik like he was already gone. He was aggressive, she said, matched the description, gun in the waistband, open and shut. The prosecutor smiled, the judge barely looked up, and for a moment it felt like gravity itself was leaning toward her version of the truth. And then she did something small, something stupid, something she probably didn't even think mattered. As she stepped down, she leaned close to me and whispered, "You keep pushing, counselor, you'll regret it." No audience, no record, just enough venom to let me know she thought I was beneath her. I didn't react, didn't even look up right away, because I've learned something about people like that. They confuse silence for weakness, and that's where they usually mess up. When I stood up for cross, I didn't raise my voice, didn't try to perform, didn't give the jury anything dramatic to grab onto. I just started walking slow, deliberate, asking her to repeat her own words back to me. Malik was alone, right? No other suspects, no crowd. She found the gun. Yes. Body cam malfunctioned, dash cam glitched. GPS down too. I let each answer sit for half a second longer than necessary, just enough for the room to feel the pattern forming. People shifted, the judge frowned, the prosecutor stopped smiling. One piece of tech fails, fine. 2 unlucky. 3 now, you're asking me to suspend disbelief, and people don't like being asked to do that. I brought up the timeline, Malik ordering a rideshare 3 minutes before she claimed he robbed a store, and she snapped, told me I should spend more time on the street instead of hiding behind paperwork. That's when I smiled just a little and told her where I grew up, the block, the noise, the way nights really move when you don't have a badge protecting you. Her confidence cracked, not enough to shatter, but enough to show there was something underneath. At lunch, she tried again, cornered me in the hallway with 2 uniforms standing just far enough back to pretend they weren't part of it. She told me things get dirty for people who dig too deep, that it's amazing what turns up in cars during traffic stops. She said it like a fact, like she was doing me a favor. I asked if that was a threat. She shrugged, called it reality, and walked away smiling. Yeah, that happened. What she didn't know was my phone was already recording, tucked away, capturing every word. But even then I knew better than to rely on just that. Recordings can be argued away, twisted, buried. I needed something that couldn't be explained, something that would hit in open court and leave no room to wiggle. That's when my investigator Tessa found me, pale, shaking, holding an envelope that felt heavier than it should have. Inside were bank slips, evidence logs, and a grainy security still that made my stomach drop. Voss, leaning into a black sedan, taking a thick envelope time-stamped 10 minutes before she ever claimed to see Malik. The driver wasn't random, wasn't even the store owner. He was a runner tied to a private security company with a clean name and dirty money, and buried in the paperwork was the real kicker, a silent owner with a last name people in this city whispered carefully. That's the moment I understood this wasn't about one bad arrest. This was a system feeding itself. I could have stopped, then called federal agencies, asked for delays, protected myself, but Malik was still in a cell, and time doesn't move the same when you're locked up for something you didn't do. So I went back into that courtroom after lunch, knowing exactly what I was about to light on fire. Voss took the stand again, looking relaxed, convinced her hallway scare tactics worked. I didn't bring a stack of papers, just one sheet face down. I walked her back through her story, the failures, the timeline, the isolation, and then I said a name. The change in her face was instant, tiny, but real, the kind of reaction you can't fake. She denied everything, denied the meeting, denied the envelope, denied knowing the man at all. And then I said it out loud, asked her about the threat she made to me during recess right there in front of the jury. The prosecutor jumped up, the judge demanded proof, and that was my moment. I flipped the paper over and laid it in front of her, a certified still from a bank camera across the street, clear enough that anyone could see what was happening. She stared at it like it was a ghost. I asked her one last time if she framed Malik to cover up taking a payoff, and her voice came out thin, barely there, when she invoked the fifth. The room exploded, whispers, gasps, reporters scrambling, the judge pounding the gavel like he was trying to break the table in half. Malik leaned toward me, chains rattling, asking what it meant, and I told him the truth that she couldn't answer without admitting a crime that her story just collapsed under its own weight. The state tried to stall, asked for time, asked for anything. But there was nothing left. No video, no data, no credible witness. I moved for dismissal and the judge granted it without hesitation. Malik was free. His mom cried like she'd been holding her breath for months and finally remembered how to breathe again. People clapped until the bailiff shut them down. Voss was escorted out, furious, mouthing threats I didn't need to hear anymore. But I didn't celebrate. I watched the back of the room, instead the officers standing there, not looking at her like she was a disgrace, but looking at me like I'd crossed an invisible line. You don't grow up around this stuff without learning to read a room, and that room was telling me the fight wasn't over. I told Malik and his mom to leave town that night, not tomorrow, not after dinner now. She asked why I said the trial was over. I told her the case was over, but the system we embarrassed didn't like being embarrassed. She was right to be confused because from the outside it looked like a win, clean and simple. But 40 minutes later, walking to my car, I checked under the wheel wells like someone who suddenly understood paranoia isn't always irrational. I locked the doors, called Tessa, told her to make copies of everything, multiple sets. She told me there was more, another file tied to the same shell company, something labeled B-Archive. That's when it clicked. Insurance, a backup plan, the kind people at the top always keep. And that's where things get uncomfortable, where the story stops being neat. I won in court, yes. I got an innocent kid home. I put a corrupt detective on record. But I also pulled on a thread that led higher than anyone in that courtroom wanted to admit. And here's the part people argue about, the part I still wrestle with. Sometimes exposing the truth doesn't break the system, it just forces it to adapt, to sacrifice a pawn and protect the king. So I want to know what you think. If you were in my position, would you stop after saving one life, protect your own, walk away while you still could? Or would you keep pulling, knowing exactly how dangerous it gets when the people with real power realize you're not scared anymore? And if you've ever seen something like this in real life, abuse of authority, quiet threats, a system closing ranks, tell me about it. Drop it in the comments. Do you believe justice exists on its own, or only when someone is stubborn enough to force it into the light? If this story hit you, if you felt that pressure, that quiet rage, that moment where the truth finally breaks through, hit the like button so more people hear it. Subscribe if you want